Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou. So this is his motivation. And when you know that, all of a sudden it all makes sense. So this video is about Francis Ngannou. Let's dive right into his psychological analysis, and obviously we have to start in his childhood. Even though I don't like, a lot of times, especially in therapy, I really don't like to pay very close attention to people's childhood, because sometimes it can bring up a lot of problems that weren't even there. But in the situation where we analyze people, especially Francis Ngannou, childhood plays a huge role. So he grew up in an almost, as I understood, extreme poverty, to the point where he was bullied in school by teachers because he couldn't afford sometimes even pencils and books. And all of that he shared in one of his his only podcast with Joe Rogan. Don't you guys just love Joe Rogan podcast? I absolutely love Joe Rogan and all podcasts that he has, because he, in a weird way, has this ability to get out of people, not even get out of people, but like make people open up. And it was just an amazing podcast with Francis Ngannou, and he shared so much, including this, that he didn't even have friends because he couldn't have friends because he was such an outlier even in his school in Cameroon, because he couldn't afford food, he couldn't afford books. His teachers would embarrass him, and would even make him leave the classroom, and he was starving all the time. He had to work in a sandland. Wait, what did he? A sand mine. Since he was 10 years old, all the way up till he was 17. And let's talk about his motivation, because his motivation starts there. And if we take psychological theories of motivation, basically his motivation was is coming from inferiority complex. So this is the concept formed by this great psychologist. I believe he was actually a psychiatrist as well, Carl Jung. He was Freud's follower and stuff. So he had this, he coined this term inferiority complex, which is basically if we speak in terms of what's his name, Francis Ngannou. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at pronouncing this French names, right? French names are probably the hardest for me after Chinese name, but yeah. So let's kind of try to explain this motivation theory through Francis Ngannou. So he shared in his interview, that in this podcast, that he couldn't have any friends because there is nothing that he could put on the table, right? He couldn't share his meals, obviously, because he didn't have money even to have his own meal, and he was just this outlier. He was always embarrassed in front of the whole the classroom. So his motivation, he actually did say it out loud, his motivation was to show all these people, all his classmates, that he was actually gonna make it, right? And obviously children a lot of times are very cruel. So he also did say out loud that they didn't even see him, quote unquote, as a human. He didn't actually say as a human, but when they would see him as an empty place instead of even considering him as a human, even though it wasn't obviously his fault, but that he had to grow up in poverty. But yeah, all these frustrations led up to him developing this motivation. And I believe that this inferiority complex is a very powerful thing. We can see a lot of greatest people just achieving their goals due to this inferiority complex. Even though I really don't like this type of motivation, I personally believe that this type of motivation is for teenager. Freud's theory motivation, which is libido motivation, is for like children, people who are younger than 12 years old. Like inferiority complex is for teenagers, and I'm a huge fan of Viktor Frankl's theory of motivation, which is basically having this deep meaning behind what you're doing and why you're doing this. And sometimes it can be as simple as, you know, just like providing for your family, or maybe just doing because you love what you're doing. Like Novak Djokovic, who is #1 tennis player right now in the world and arguably the greatest of all time tennis player, and his motivation behind what he's doing, well, at least what he shared is he loves what he's doing, and obviously it pays well and stuff. So that's like my preference. But obviously a lot of times you can't choose what you are motivated by, right? So it's not like any sort of judgment, but I'm just saying that in my opinion, like the healthiest motivation is to find what really drives you, what is meaningful to you, and not just fight back. Which is not me saying that that is his only like motivation, because there could be like a lot of motivations, but like there is this main drive that drives person. And it seems like, at least from this podcast, that this is what drives him. This experience in his childhood is what really something that really, it seems like, hurt him. And it's not like it seems like it is so obvious, because it's a very, very sad story, and sometimes hearing stories like that make you feel like you have it really, really easy. So that's basically the motivation behind what he behind his success and what he does. Another thing that I've already kind of touched upon is his work ethic comes really from his childhood, and a lot of us heard this concept like get out of your comfort zone. Well, basically his entire life was out of his comfort zone, right? But a lot of people experience that, but not all of them become like Francis Ngannou. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly, right? But what differentiates between people who psychologically break under those circumstances, right? And people like Francis Ngannou, who actually are able to become these really great athletes, or who are able to achieve this really great success. Well, first thing that I noticed in his interview is that he does have very strong growth mindset, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna insert a video from Joe Rogan podcast here where you can see how he actually thinks about things, right? And we can really see from people's speech whether or not they are growth mindset person, knowingly or unknowingly, right? So he really believes in improvement, and that anyone can improve if they are willing to put their mind to something, right? And this is something that is, I believe, one of the greatest predictors of success in life. So that is very big. I believe that's what has allowed him to get where he is right now, even though the situation where he was at really sucked. Another, especially in the childhood and teenage years, another thing that I have noticed, that even when everything was so hard for him in the childhood, by the way, all the information I'm talking about right now is the information that I have gotten from this Joe Rogan podcast. So his frame is very firm, even though it's so hard to have your frame so strong when you are a child. But he also shared that even though his classmates were looking at him as if he is nothing, not even a human being, because he couldn't basically contribute in any way or form, right? He really understood or thought that he was actually not better than them in a way, but he was actually, whatever, he had very little, right? But he worked for it. He was working so hard since his childhood, and he actually was proud of it. He was like, okay, I don't have much, but what I have, I earned it, and you guys, what you guys have is a privilege. I'm not saying that he said that, at least he didn't share that he told them that, but this is a frame, right? This is, having a frame is having your own opinion about yourself, about the situation, about what you deserve or don't deserve, right? Regardless of what other people think or say. This is so important. I can't overemphasize it. It's huge, and it seems like he did have this frame, his frame, very, very, very strong frame since the childhood, which really says a lot about a person's character and how strong his character was since his childhood, which I believe maybe could have formed due to this very, very difficult circumstance that he grew up in. So if you guys want more analysis of Francis, please comment in the section down below, and don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, all buttons that you see, maybe dislike button if you didn't like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Yeah, go to my channel and watch my other videos. So thank you so much for watching, and as I've already said, I'll see you in the next one.